Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Royval versus Taira fight. And so, if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Royval is 16-7 with 4 KOs and 9 submissions, and Taira is 16-0 with 5 KOs and 7 submissions. This fight is a 5-round fight in the flyweight division. Royval's last fight was a win via split decision versus Moreno, and Taira's last fight was a win via TKO in round 2 versus Perez. Royval is 32 and Taira is 24. Royval is a southpaw, and to speak a bit more about what I've just been said, obviously this is 5-round fight, flyweight division, arguably one of the fights, if not the fight that I'm most looking forward to in the flyweight division currently. It's ranked number 1 versus ranked number 5. It's a very risky fight for Royval to have taken, and to be honest, it's interesting to see that he's even taken it in the first place. Obviously, Royval last time out got a very good victory versus Moreno in their rematch, a fight in which, a lot of people were expecting Moreno to win, and a lot of people were perhaps writing Royval off, but Moreno maybe didn't look himself 100%. Possibly that was due to things like the altitude of the fight and things like that, and I don't know, maybe a few wars get into him and things like that. But Royval looked good, he looked comfortable and was having success, and into the later rounds was having a lot of success, and so, it was a good fight for him, a very good performance. Perhaps people were then thinking he would then go on to fight Pantoja again and things like that, but I respect him a lot for taking this fight versus Taira. I don't necessarily know if it was his first choice or not, but nonetheless, it's a fighter in Taira who, in my opinion, is probably the most exciting flyweight around at the moment. And in a time in the flyweight division where, in my opinion, I think we are screaming out for some new names and some new talents to be around. Somebody like a Taira is really, I think, going to bring that. And even if he loses this fight, I still think he's definitely going to be in and around, and he's still very young, 24 years old, developing with every fight and things like that. So I think it's definitely going to be the case where he is going to be able to develop in the UFC and hopefully become a big name in the flyweight division. And realistically, when you look at the names around, you kind of do just see a lot of the same names. Already, obviously, Albazi is fighting Moreno. That's a bit of a new fight, and that's something a bit different. And Albazi obviously hasn't been the most active and has been out for a while, but that's a fight in which I'm excited to see and things like that. But other than that, like Royval, Pantoja, I mean, even when we had Figueiredo in, Moreno, we've all been having rematches, things like that. Even Cara France has been around and was kind of seen at one point as as this like newcomer to come and fight for the title and possibly even win, but he's always just been a little bit too short. And then when you look below that, of course, we have Mikhaev before, who was seen as a super entertaining, well, maybe not super entertaining, but a new name to come in and was be looking very dominant at times as well. And he got cut from the UFC even though he was on a great run. Still not really fully sure as to why he was cut, but nonetheless he was, and so he was no longer a name to have around. Then other than that, there isn't really many kind of fighters coming through that are big names. So someone like a Tara, who obviously has had his first main event slot now against Perez and looked very good in that. He hasn't yet been that 5-round distance though, so that's what it needs. That's what he needs, and that's where it's going to be another fight, kind of experience versus youthfulness. And Royval has been in a lot of close fights. He has taken damage in fights and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to still be that same fighter and still be able to mix around with these young guys coming through who have that momentum. But we'll have to wait and see. And at a time also where Japanese MMA isn't realistically doing amazing in the UFC. The bigger names, like, I mean, you have Korean Zombie. He, didn't all like. I mean, like Asia MMA isn't really doing amazing. Like I say, you had like Korean Zombie. You had Ji Lang as well. There was a few names that were about, but they've kind of gone now, and so there wasn't really one clear standout star from Asia realistically. But Taira definitely could be that. He is, like I say, very entertaining in my opinion, and very unorthodox and very hard to deal with. And I'm going to talk about a bit more about that in just a moment. But obviously, I mean, if you speak about Taira's last performance in itself, you have to speak about how good of a TKO it was. It was kind of just like a submission that led on to a TKO, but obviously it was an injury stoppage, but it was all led from the submission attempts from what Taira had done, and it's something in which you hadn't really seen much of before. If realistically, for a long time in the UFC, seen a fighter go for a submission like that off the back, kind of like pushed him away from the cage, used his body to just pull him to a side where in which he wanted him, wrapped his leg around, and then waited to the perfect time to be able to get him down, and then basically just force the injury to happen, creating that gap and just enough to be able to get him down. And it was really, really impressive. And it's just like I say, it's something creative, and even a couple of his other submissions that he's had, they've seen like he's been able to make the adjustments and be able to. He's difficult to be able to get off and things like that. So yeah, he is definitely a creative, different type of entity to what we do have currently around in the flyweight division. Like I say, we do need that. To speak about them both individually as fighters, so Royval. He's got very good long straight shots, and he showed that versus Moreno and was able to keep him at a somewhat of a range for a lot of the fights. And when you're against somebody like Moreno, who is realistically going to want to get up close and going to want to get his big strikes going, his big overhands, which he did land a bit, but a lot of the time Royval was able to kind of neglect that with the long straight shots in which he has, and then, like I say, he did improve throughout that fight and become more confident, and he was throwing a lot more, have had that high output, was able to use them long straight shots as consistent combinations, and it was really nice to see. He doesn't really get discouraged, even if perhaps he does get caught with a shot. He does have a good chin, but like I say, he doesn't really get discouraged either. He's able to keep a range, like I say, at times he probably is going to want to preferably fight at a mid-range. I think Taira on his feet is going to want to fight at a mid-range as well, so that could gel for an interesting type of striking affair. He's got them fast hands, he's got strong knees, he's got them nice knees in the middle, and Taira is known to tie clinch and is really good at clinching. But if Royval is able to use the knees in which he has, Taira has good knees as well, but Royval has really good knees. So that could make for an interesting thing, and I think possibly Royval might be that a little bit stronger in that aspect. I'm not too sure. He has got solid timing as well, Royval, and is able to go for submissions off his back. I think Taira is very good at getting off his back, but I think Royval is able to go for submissions off his back. So if Taira does get him down, Royval is still a threat, and that could be something that Taira isn't really used to facing as of yet. And Taira has had times in fights as he has been coming up where he has been caught in submissions and he has been almost tapped and things like that, but then saved by the bell and on a couple of occasions. So he has been damaged at times. He's difficult to tie down. Royval, he has great scrambles. He's got, like I say, a good chin. He's light on his feet. He has that high output. I believe he does, like I say, improve throughout fights, and he's used to going that 5 round distance. And if he's going to be improving throughout, Taira might tire. He stands his ground well, and he's got a good work rate. Negatives about him: he does stand very tall. I think he definitely is able, he will take shots, and he does stand tall, so he is a big target. He takes them strong overhands, and Taira does have kind of deceptible type power in my opinion. He moves back in straight lines, Royval, with often his chin up in the air, and perhaps kind of rushes back a bit and stumbles a bit backwards at times. He has that low guard. He doesn't always necessarily make adjustments. I think he was getting caught often with Moreno's overhand and wasn't really being able to make that adjustment to be able to deal with that too much. He's power, neither fighter I think have crazy power. Like I said, I think Taira is uh, a bit hidden power, but I don't think either of them has crazy amounts of power. He overreaches a bit at times. He doesn't always necessarily move into his punches or step into his punches, and he does headhunt a bit at times. And I think sometimes he can also fight a bit emotionally, can get frustrated if things aren't going his way. I've definitely seen that. And he always tries to shake off any type of attack that he gets caught with. But if he is doing that, you can see that he is reacting to the punches, even if he's saying that they aren't really doing anything. It probably means that they are, and he does sometimes give his back away at times, which is something which you really don't want to do versus Taira. Speaking more about Taira, he has, of course, like I say, that momentum with him. He's got them creative submission attempts like I talked about. He's relaxed. I mean, you have to be relaxed in general to be able to do that, but as a young guy coming up, to have that kind of relaxed thought process about you and to be able to do these creative things. It's really impressive. He moves well, clinches well. Like I said, them good tie clinches in close. He's not necessarily the most comfortable striker in close, but he is able to tie clinch in close and make it a little bit more difficult. But that might not go in his favour, like I mentioned. He has got solid timing. He's typically a mid-range fighter, like I said. He picks his shots well. He's got them fast hands. He's got quite clean technical shot work and wants to fight at his pace. And if he can find his rhythm, then he is able to be comfortable on his feet. He gets off his back well, not scrambles realistically. Kind of is just able to maneuver himself off the ground well. He resets well to the centre and can get you down efficiently. He's very fast at being able to get takedowns, and it's not really kind of using too much of his energy seemingly to do so. Negatives about him, obviously, I would say he is a lower level striker than that of Royval. I think Royval is the better out of the two on his feet. He wants to fight to be at his pace, but Royval is typically going to fight at a high pace, and I think Taira is wanting to fight at a slower pace on his feet, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. He doesn't, like I say, always seem too comfortable in close. He can struggle against a high output, and like I mentioned before, Royval has that high output. I think he has a bit of a soft jab a bit at times, and you can just kind of throw it out for no real reason. Doesn't really use it to set up or anything like that. He has that lower output, like I mentioned. He's not really been in any type of a brawl type fight. Obviously, this is a real big step up for him. His physicality, he's not really overly that physical. I think Royval isn't typically that strong, but is perhaps because he has them longer limbs able to be that bit more physical. Perhaps he's a little bit too confident at times, and that's where he can make little mistakes, and that's where he can get caught with, like I say, submissions and things like that, where things can go not his way. And sometimes finding range himself can be a bit of a problem, where Royval might be able to capitalise on his feet because he is able to find his range really well. Taira is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Taira is going to win via submission in round 4. I believe if Royval is going to give up his back and going to perhaps give up opportunities for Taira, I think Taira's going to capitalise on that. And even if that's just off a tie clinch to be able to then spin around Royval, I think it could be a very interesting way in which he does it. I don't necessarily know if you can predict exactly how he's going to go for submission or what kind of submission he's going to try get, but I think Royval, also with the longer limbs as well, if he can time down, it's going to be a very difficult thing for him to time down because, like I say, Royval has got very good scrambles and is going to not be just kind of a sit-in target. If he is able to time down, then I think he could work a submission and then be able to get a later round submission. And realistically, that would be a great statement to make. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with a higher pace going into the later rounds. If he's been forced into a higher pace by Royval, he might be struggling a little bit. But like I say, we will see. And in my opinion, a late submission, round 4 for Taira. Then who he could go on to fight? I am pretty much just going to name all of the top contenders in the flyweight division. I mean, realistically, why not? He hasn't fought any of them as of yet. They're all kind of crying out for that fresh blood, so why not put him in? You know, he could go straight into a title fight versus Pantoja. If he does, like I say, get a statement victory versus Royval here, why not? That could be a great fight to make. If not, you know, Moreno versus Albazi, of course, like I mentioned, they're fighting in November, I believe, so that could be a good fight to fight the winner out of a number one contenders fight, that one. Perhaps, you know, that does make sense for a number one contender to then fight Pantoja, but, you know, otherwise Pantoja might just be sitting about and wanting a fight, so if he's wanting a fight, he might choose Taira. Or, you know, Taira France is another fight as well. Of course, like I mentioned, Taira is so young still, and so there's no realistic rush for him to be able to be pushed into a title fight. So something like a Taira France, obviously, he has fought all these top guys. He's not always come out on top versus them, but he's coming off a a very nice KO win versus Ursig. So why not? That could be a fight to be made as well. And he's always been around in the higher rankings as of recent, Taira France. So why not try again for him to be able to push a little bit higher? But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you are new, and thanks for watching.